Next speaker is Dr. Madhuri Nagori. She is MD-DM, Senior Interventional Cardiologist at Vardhan Bansal Hospital, Bhopal. And the topic is fibrinolytic therapy for thrombolytic diseases, approved indication and future directions.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank Dr. Alok Singh for having me here. Topic of today's discussion is fibrinolytic therapy for thromboembolic diseases. What are the approved indications till date and what is in future? We all know that fibrinolytic agents are catalysts that converts proactive plasminogen to active plasmin, and this act on the fibrin or fibrinogen depending on where it is being working. Like we have some fibrin specific fibrinolytic agents which acts on the surface of thrombus, and fibrin is degraded into fibrin degradation products. And those non-specific, non-fibrin specific agents, thrombolytic agents like streptokinase and urokinase, they act on circulating blood plasminogen, which is converted into plasmin, and this plasmin in turn degrade circulating fibrinogen into fibrinogen degradation product. So there is a difference. So systemic fibrinolysis will create a state of generalized fibrinolysis in the body at those places where it is not needed and hence can be counterproductive at times. There are mainly four groups or indications of fibrinolytic therapy. One, all of us are aware of, ST elevation MI. The others are acute ischemic stroke, then DVT and pulmonary embolism. And the few smaller group of patients are also being treated by fibrinolytic agents like prosthetic valve thrombosis, especially mechanical valves, then central venous access device occlusions, then acute limb ischemia, that is arterial thrombosis. So, what happens is this, and we will be discussing each of these categories separately. This is you can say that these are the milestones regarding the fibrinolytic therapy for these type of thromboembolic disease, and it is not possible to go through all these uh, milestones, and I will just like to highlight some important and interesting facts. These are that the first use of streptokinase for patients with acute MI was being done in 1958, and you would be surprised to know that FDA gave approval 30 years after the first use of streptokinase in ST elevation MI patient, that is in around 1988. And in 2003, we found out that it is not the thrombolysis, but it is the primary PCI which is working better in ST elevation MI patient, and therefore there was a downhill course of fibrinolytic agents in ST elevation MI patients. The opposite happened in acute ischemic stroke, where it was found that it can work in acute ischemic stroke as well on the basis of two landmark trials, that is NINTS trial, and this brought alteplase for ischemic stroke in those patients who have less than 3 hours of symptoms, and it was found out in 1995-96. And very soon the window period was being extended from 3 hours to 4.5 hours in these type of patients, and now we are going beyond 4.5 hours in treating ischemic stroke patients with fibrinolytic agents on the basis of some perfusion imaging, etc. Pulmonary embolism patients were being treated by thrombolytic or streptokinase as in 1964-67 also, but the randomized control trial happened in 1970 and 74, and the FDA gave approval for this usage of fibrinolytic agent in 1977, 78, and 1990. For some minor uses, there is no FDA approval except for CVAD occlusion, where FDA has approved alteplase in 2002. Looking at the recent trends in the usage of thrombolytic agents in various indications, this is all the US data, but we can extrapolate it to India, where after 2004, primary PCI took over fibrinolytic agent, where because ACC had recommended primary PCI over fibrinolytic agent in 2004, and from then there is reduced use of fibrinolytic agent as compared to primary PCI. The opposite happened in acute ischemic stroke. The increase in the use of thrombolytic agents in ischemic stroke patients right from 2002. The use of catheter-based thrombolysis happened in pulmonary embolism and proximal DVT, and its use was less than 10%, not frequent, and it has been stable throughout the introduction. And acute limb ischemia, we have been increasingly using fibrinolytic agent and not giving patients to our surgical colleagues because of the more use of endovascular therapy. So key recommendations from major professional guidelines is that those patients who come with ischemic symptoms of less than 12 hours of onset and landed up in a non-PCI capable center, and we are not able to send them to a PCI capable center in less than 2 hours, better to thrombolize them. And it is better to thrombolize with fibrin specific agents like alteplase, retiplase, and tenecteplase rather than streptokinase. And if the patient of age is of more than 75 years and you are worried about the bleeding risk, then you can try a half dose of tenecteplase. And we do not thrombolize patients who are having ST segment depression except if we are suspecting acute posterior wall MI, then we'll have to prove it. Now, the other indications is acute ischemic stroke. Thrombolytic agents have been used, and it was initiated following the two NINTS trial, and which demonstrated that IV alteplase 0.9 milligram per kilogram administered within 3 hours of symptom onset causes significant improvement in favorable neurological outcomes at 3 months with a small increase in the risk of intracerebral hemorrhage. So it has also come in the guidelines that you give systemic fibrinolysis with alteplase for selected patients of ischemic stroke up to 4.5 hours of the symptom onset. And if we are confused of the time of onset of the symptoms, if the patient wakes up with stroke symptoms, and we can take help of the imaging. If imaging shows salvageable brain tissue, then we can go ahead even after when 4.5 hours have been lapsed. And systemic fibrinolysis has not to be given like streptokinase, non-specific fibrin lytics, has not to be used in ischemic stroke. Coming to pulmonary embolism, we use thrombolysis in massive or high-risk pulmonary embolism. We mean that those patients who are in shock or hypotension or have RV dysfunction, there, it's the class 1 recommendation to use thrombolytic agent. And choice of thrombolytic agent, whether it should be systemic or catheter-based, depends on the local expertise and bleeding risk of the patient. And approved thrombolytic agents for these pulmonary thromboembolism is streptokinase, urokinase, and alteplase, and we are using alteplase the most. It was systemic fibrinolytic was introduced in pulmonary embolism as past as 1960s, 1970s, and there was a landmark trial which was done in decompensated patients of pulmonary embolism, which included only 8 patients, and 4 of them who did not receive thrombolytic agent died, and all 4 survived, those who received thrombolytic agent. So this trial drew attention of everyone, and there were many randomized control trial which was being done after that, and this is a meta-analysis of those randomized trial where it showed a significant reduction in recurrent pulmonary embolism or death in trials where thrombolytic agent was being used. In cases of submassive pulmonary embolism, that means those who have RV dysfunction or increased biomarkers but they are hemodynamically stable, thrombolytic therapy is recommended if there is low bleeding risk. And emerging role of catheter-based therapies in such a patient, and we are using lower dose of thrombolytic agent if the patient is hemodynamically stable. And it is still not recommended in intermediate risk pulmonary embolism, and the guideline says that only in hemodynamically stable patients who are deteriorating hemodynamically or symptomatically can be given thrombolytic agent, and there also catheter based thrombolysis can be tried to decrease the bleeding risk. Coming to deep vein thrombosis, in deep vein thrombosis, we are mostly worried about the post-thrombotic syndrome. That is a constellation of dependent edema, itching, swelling, skin discoloration of the limb which is being involved. And whatever anticoagulation we use, 50% of the patients will develop post-thrombotic syndrome. And despite improving venous patency by thrombolytic agents, the systemic fibrinolysis will decrease the post-thrombotic syndrome, but it is not routinely recommended because of the risk of bleeding. So, in professional guidelines have said that in DVT, you should only use catheter-directed fibrinolysis, that too proximal veins when they are involved. Coming to acute limb ischemia, it's a class of recommendation is only catheter-based fibrinolysis. That is a class 1 recommendation for acute limb ischemia of those limbs which are still salvageable. Other smaller clinical indications like central venous access device occlusion, which remains a challenging problem in those patients who require durable vascular access, and alteplase has received FDA approval in such patients where small doses of alteplase is being given from the catheter, and it should not be used prophylactically, only should be used when there is actually the thrombosis has happened, and small doses of 2 small doses can be given to maintain the patency. Coming to mechanical prosthetic valve thrombosis, the role of systemic thrombolysis is still debated, and until a decade ago, there was only few retrospective studies, and surgery was always the preferred approach. But recently, an ultra slow regime has been developed where a small dose of fibrinolytic, like 1 milligram to 25 milligram within 24 hours of alteplase, and maximum up to 200 milligram can be given slowly so that the bleeding risk decreases and the valve opens. Although ESC has not said anything about this regime, and it only recommends surgery for the treatment of prosthetic valve thrombosis, but ACC has said that it can be used in those patients who are not very severely symptomatic, like NYHA class 1 to 3, and the thrombus burden is small, that is less than 0.8 centimeter square. In such type of patients, thrombolytic agents, this therapy like ultra slow low dose regime can be tried to avoid surgery. Coming to the next category, left ventricular thrombus, it is not been recommended to use thrombolytic agent in left ventricular thrombus because we know that the chance of thrombus embolization increases, and still the anticoagulation is the drug of choice in LV thrombus. Left ventricular access device occlusion happens, and this pump thrombosis is a dreaded complication where we have to act fast, and we either give another temporary mechanical circulatory support to the patient and give salvage fibrinolytic therapy can be tried, but FDA or guidelines have not said anything about it. Central retinal artery occlusion, it's a ocular stroke where it's a thromboembolic vascular event affecting the retina and which causes sudden painless unilateral vision loss. Your ophthalmology colleagues must have sent few patients to you to rule out any cardiac cause of central retinal artery occlusion, and if we are doing conservative treatment, 80% would lose a visual acuity to only counting fingers or worse than that. So we can do something about them. The most recent AHA statement suggests that IV alteplase for patients with central retinal artery occlusion presenting within 4.5 hours, like that, they needed to be treated like that of a stroke. And for patients who are ineligible for IV fibrinolysis, then and they are presenting within 6 hours, then you can try intraarterial alteplase can be an option. So there we can take help of our ophthalmology colleagues. Central venous sinus thrombosis, their systemic anticoagulation is the drug of choice, and it's the first line treatment, but it is less effective in extensive thrombosis, and 20% of the patients remains disabled or despite this anticoagulation in the full dose. So here fibrinolysis has tried, and it results in 90% complete or partial thrombus resolution in even extensive central venous thrombosis patient. So what is these are the multiple indications we have discussed. The future is ongoing trials have been there, like PTHO and PTRAC trial, which are being going on in intermediate group pulmonary embolism patients. Then FORET trial have been done on recombinant non-immunogenic staphylokinase. This is a different type of thrombolytic agent which will come in the market if the trials are successful. Other novel fibrinolytic agents like pro-urokinase, his pro-urokinase, and non-immunogenic recombinant staphylokinase, and monoclonal antibodies blocking alpha-2 antiplasmin and plasminogen activator inhibitor 1 have been developed, and these are still in the trial phase. So to summarize, fibrinolytic therapy remains a major management option for thromboembolic diseases, and advances in catheter-directed techniques, dosing strategies, and novel agents may expand therapeutic options and improve the safety of fibrinolytic agents. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, madam, for